The system is sometimes taken to be the paradigm for the practice of bare insight, the direct contemplation of mental and bodily phenomena without a prior foundation of jhana. And while several exercises described in the sutta can also lead to the jhanas, the arousing of insight is clearly the intent of the method. Other suttas in the Majjhima Nikāya describe approaches to developing insight that either elaborate upon the Satipatthana contemplations or reach them from a different starting point. Thus, Sutta 118 shows how the practice of mindfulness of breathing fulfills all four foundations of mindfulness, not the first alone as shown in Sutta 10. Several suttas, 28, 62, 140, present more detailed instructions on the contemplation of the elements. Suttas 37, 74, and 140 contain illuminating passages on the contemplation of feeling. In some suttas, the Buddha uses the five aggregates as the groundwork for insight contemplation, for example, Suttas 22 and 109. In some, the six sense spaces, for example, Suttas 137, 148, and 149. In some, the two combined, Sutta 147. Sutta 112 has sections dealing with insight based on the five aggregates, the six elements, and the six sense spaces, and as resulting from the gradual training. Suttas 52 and 64 show that insight can be aroused with the jhanas, the immaterial attainments, and the divine abodes as its objects. The disciple enters any of these states and contemplates its constituent factors as subject to the three characteristics. Several sequences of meditative states mentioned in the Majjhima culminate in an attainment called the cessation of perception and feeling. Although this state always follows the last immaterial attainment, it is not, as may be supposed, merely one higher step in the scale of concentration. Strictly speaking, the attainment of cessation pertains neither to serenity nor to insight. It is a state reached by the combined powers of serenity and insight, in which all mental processes are temporarily suspended. The attainment is said to be accessible only to non-returners and arahants, who have also mastered the jhanas and immaterial states. Detailed canonical discussions of it are found in Suttas 43 and 44. The Four Planes of Liberation. The practice of the Buddhist path evolves in two distinct stages, a mundane, lokiya, or preparatory stage, and a supramundane, lokuttara, or consummate stage. The mundane path is developed when the disciple undertakes the gradual training in virtue, concentration, and wisdom. This reaches its peak in the practice of insight meditation, which deepens direct experience of the three characteristics of existence. When the practitioner's faculties have arrived at an adequate degree of maturity, the mundane path gives birth to the supramundane path, so called because it leads directly and infallibly out of uttara, the world, loka, comprising the three realms of existence, to the attainment of the deathless element, nibbana. Progress along the supramundane path is marked by four major breakthroughs, each of which ushers the disciple through two subordinate phases, called the path, magga, and its fruit, phala. The phase of path has the special function of eliminating a determinate number of defilements to which it is directly opposed, the mental impediments that hold us in bondage to the round of rebirths. When the work of the path has been completed, the disciple realizes its corresponding fruit, the degree of liberation made accessible by that particular path. The canonical formula of homage to the Sangha refers obliquely to these four planes of liberation, each with its phase of path and fruit, when it extols the Blessed One's community of noble disciples as comprising the four pairs of persons, the 8 types of individuals, Sutta 7, Section 7. These four pairs are obtained by taking, for each stage, the one who has entered upon the way to realization of the fruit, and the one who has attained the fruit. In the suttas, the Buddha highlights the specific characteristics of each supramundane stage in two ways, by mentioning the defilements that are abandoned on each plane, and the consequences its attainment bears on the process of rebirth. See, for example, Suttas 6, sections 11 to 13 and 19, Sutta 22, section 42 to 45, and so on. He handles the elimination of the defilements by classifying these into a 10-fold group called the 10 fetters, sanyojanas. The disciple enters upon the first supramundane path either as a dhamma follower or as a faith follower. The former is one in whom wisdom is the dominant faculty, the latter one who progresses by the impetus of faith. This path, the path of stream entry, has the task of eradicating the grossest 3 fetters, identity view, that is, the view of a self among the 5 aggregates, doubt in the Buddha and his teaching, and adherence to external rules and observances, either ritualistic or ascetic, in the belief that they can bring purification. When the disciple realizes the fruit of this path, he becomes a stream enterer, Sotapanna, who has entered the stream of the Noble Eightfold Path that will carry him irreversibly to Nibbana. The stream enterer is bound to reach final liberation in a maximum of 7 more births, which all occur either in the human world or in the heavenly realms. The second supramundane path attenuates to a still greater degree the root defilements of lust, hatred, and delusion, though without yet eradicating them. On realizing the fruit of this path, the disciple becomes a once-returner, Sakadagamin, who is due to return to this world, that is, the sense-sphere realm, only one more time, and then make an end of suffering. The third path eradicates the next 2 fetters, sensual desire and ill will. It issues in the fruit of the non-returner, Anagamin, who is due to reappear by spontaneous birth in one of the special celestial realms called the Pure Abodes, and there attain final Nibbana without ever returning from that world. The fourth and last supramundane path is the path of arahantship. This path eradicates the 5 higher fetters, desire for rebirth in the fine material realm and in the immaterial realm, conceit, restlessness, and ignorance. By realization of the fruit of this path, the practitioner becomes an arahant, a fully liberated one, who here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance of mind, and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. The arahant will be discussed further in the next section. The commentaries develop an interpretation of the paths and fruits based upon the systematization of the Buddha's teachings known as the Abhidhamma. Drawing upon the Abhidhamma depiction of the mind as a sequence of discrete momentary acts of consciousness, called chittas, the commentaries understand each supramundane path to be a single occasion of consciousness arising at the climax of a series of insights into the Dhamma. Each of the 4 momentary path chittas illuminates its own fixed set of defilements, to be followed immediately by its fruition, which consists of a string of momentary chittas that enjoy the bliss of Nibbana made accessible by the breakthrough of the path. Though this conception of the paths and fruits is regularly employed by the commentators as a hermeneutical tool for interpreting the suttas, it is not explicitly formulated as such in the old Nikāyas, and at times there even appears to be a tension between the two, for example in the passage at Sutta 142, section 5, describing the 4 persons on the path as distinct recipients of offerings. The Arahant. The ideal figure of the Majjhima Nikāya, as of the Pali Canon as a whole, is the Arahant. The word Arahant itself derives from a root meaning to be worthy. Venerable Nyanamoli renders it as accomplished and accomplished one when it is used as an epithet of the Buddha, probably to be consistent with his practice of translating all the Buddha's epithets. In its other occurrences, he leaves it untranslated. The word seems to have been of pre-Buddhist coinage, but was taken over by the Buddha to designate the individual who has reached the final fruit of the path. The suttas employ a stock description of the Arahant that summarizes his accomplishments. He is one with taints destroyed, who has lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached his own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, and is completely liberated through final knowledge. Sutta 1, section 51, and so on. Variant descriptions emphasize different aspects of the Arahant's attainment. Thus, one sutta offers a series of metaphorical epithets that the Buddha himself interprets as representing the Arahant's abandoning of ignorance, craving, and conceit, his eradication of fetters, and his freedom from the round of births. Sutta 22, sections 30 to 35. Elsewhere, the Buddha ascribes a different set of epithets to the Arahant, several of Brahmanical currency, deriving these terms by imaginative etymology from the Arahant's elimination of all evil, unwholesome states. Sutta 39, sections 22 to 29. The Majjhima records differences of type among the Arahants, which are ascribed to the diversity in their faculties. In Sutta 70, the Buddha introduces a basic distinction between those Arahants who are liberated in both ways, and those who are liberated by wisdom. Whereas the former are capable of abiding in the immaterial attainments, the latter lack that capacity. Arahants are further distinguished as those who possess, besides the knowledge of the destruction of the taints necessary to all Arahants, all 3 of the true knowledges and all 6 of the direct knowledges. In Sutta 108, the Venerable Ananda indicates that those arahants who possessed the 6 direct knowledges were accorded special veneration and authority in the Sangha following the Buddha's passing away. Beneath these incidental differences, however, all arahants alike share the same essential accomplishments: the destruction of all defilements and the freedom from future rebirths. They possess 3 unsurpassable qualities: unsurpassable vision, unsurpassable practice of the way, and unsurpassable deliverance. Sutta 35, section 26. They are endowed with the 10 factors of one beyond training, the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, augmented by right knowledge and right deliverance. Suttas 65, section 34, and 78, section 14. They possess the 4 foundations, the foundations of wisdom, of truth, of relinquishment, and of peace. Sutta 140, section 11. And by the eradication of lust, hate, and delusion, all arahants have access to a unique meditative attainment called the fruition attainment of arahantship, described as the unshakable deliverance of mind, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, the void deliverance of mind, the deliverance of mind through no-thingness, and the signless deliverance of mind. Sutta 43, sections 35 to 37. Karma and rebirth. According to the Buddha's teaching, all beings except the arahants are subject to renewal of being in the future, punabhava, that is, to rebirth. Rebirth, in the Buddhist conception, is not the transmigration of a self or soul, but the continuation of a process, a flux of becoming in which successive lives are linked together by causal transmission of influence rather than by substantial identity. The basic causal pattern underlying the process is that defined by the teaching of dependent origination, which also demonstrates how rebirth is possible without a reincarnating self. The process of rebirth, the Buddha teaches, exhibits a definite lawfulness, essentially ethical in character. This ethical character is established by the fundamental dynamism that determines the states into which beings are reborn, and the circumstances they encounter in the course of their lives. That dynamism is karma, volitional activity of body, speech, and mind. Those beings who engage in bad actions, actions motivated by the 3 unwholesome roots of greed, hatred, and delusion, generate unwholesome karma that leads them to rebirth into lower states of existence, and if it ripens in the human world, brings them pain and misfortune. Those beings who engage in good actions, actions motivated by the 3 wholesome roots of non-greed, non-hate, and non-delusion, generate wholesome karma that leads them to higher states of existence and ripens in the human world as happiness and good fortune. Because the deeds a person performs in the course of a single life can be extremely varied, the type of rebirth that lies ahead of him can be very unpredictable, as the Buddha shows in Sutta 136. But despite this empirical variability, an invariable law governs the direct relationship between types of actions and the types of results they yield, the basic correlations being sketched by the Buddha in Sutta 57 and laid out in greater detail in Sutta 135. In several suttas of the Majjhima Nikāya, the Buddha refers to various planes of existence into which rebirth can occur, and he also gives some indication of the types of karma that lead to those planes. This cosmological typography is not, from the Buddhist standpoint, the product of conjecture or fantasy, but a matter directly known to the Buddha through his Tathagata's powers of knowledge. Sutta 12, section 36. To some extent, the process is also verifiable by those who gain the divine eye, as for example in Sutta 39, section 20. A brief overview may be given here of the planes of rebirth recognized in the Buddhist cosmology and of their karmic antecedents, as systematized in the developed Theravada tradition. The Buddhist cosmos is divided into 3 broad realms: the sense sphere realm, the fine material realm, and the immaterial realm. Each of these comprises a range of subsidiary planes, amounting to a total of 31 planes of existence. The sense sphere realm, so called because sensual desire predominates there, consists of 11 planes divided into 2 groups, the bad destinations and the good destinations. The bad destinations or states of deprivation, apaya, are 4 in number. The hells, which are states of intense torment as described in Suttas 129 and 130. The animal kingdom, the sphere of ghosts, peta, being afflicted with incessant hunger and thirst, and the sphere of titans, asura, being involved in constant combat, not mentioned as a separate plane in the Majjhima. The courses of karma leading to rebirth into these planes are classified into a set of 10, 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. These are enumerated briefly at Sutta 9, section 4, and explicated in Sutta 41. Gradations in the gravity of the evil intentions responsible for those deeds account for specific differences in the mode of rebirth resulting from such actions. The good destinations in the sense sphere realm are the human world and the heavenly planes. The latter are sixfold: the gods under the 4 great kings, the gods of the 33, who are presided over by Sakka, a Buddhist metamorphosis of Indra, depicted as a devotee of the Buddha, faithful but prone to negligence, Sutta 37. The Yama gods, the gods of the Tusita heaven, the abode of the Bodhisattva before his final birth, Sutta 123. The gods who delight in creating, and the gods who wield power over others' creations. The last is said to be the abode of Mara, the tempter in Buddhism, who, besides being a symbol for desire and death, is also regarded as a powerful deity with evil designs, keen to prevent beings from escaping the net of samsara. The karmic cause for rebirth into the good destinations of the sense sphere realm is the practice of the 10 courses of wholesome action, defined at Sutta 9, Section 8, and in Sutta 41. In the fine material realm, the grosser types of matter are absent, and the bliss, power, luminosity, and vitality of its denizens are far superior to those in the sense sphere realm. The fine material realm consists of 16 planes, which are the objective counterparts of the 4 jhanas. Attainment of the first jhana leads to rebirth among Brahma's assembly, the ministers of Brahma and the Maha-Brahmas, according to whether it is developed to an inferior, middling, or superior degree. Bhaka the Brahma, in Sutta 49, and Brahma Sahampati, in Suttas 26 and 67, seem to be residents of the last-named plane. The suttas mention especially the divine abodes as the path to the company of Brahma, Sutta 99, sections 24 to 27. Attainment of the second jhana in the same 3 degrees leads respectively to rebirth among the gods of limited radiance, of immeasurable radiance, and of streaming radiance. The third jhana to rebirth among the gods of limited glory, of immeasurable glory, and of refulgent glory. The fourth jhana ordinarily leads to rebirth among the gods of great fruit, but if it is developed with a desire to attain an insentient mode of existence, it will conduce to rebirth among the non-percipient beings, for whom consciousness is temporarily suspended. The fine material realm also contains 5 special planes that are exclusively for the rebirth of non-returners. These are the pure abodes, the Aviha, the Atapa, the Sudasa, the Sudasi, and the Akanita. In each of these planes, in the fine material realm, the lifespan is said to be of enormous duration and to increase significantly in each higher plane. The third realm of being is the immaterial realm, where matter has become non-existent and only mental processes exist. This realm consists of 4 planes, which are the objective counterparts of the 4 immaterial meditative attainments, from which they result and whose names they share: the bases of infinite space, infinite consciousness, no-thingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. The lifespans ascribed to them are respectively 20,000, 40,000, 60,000, and 84,000 great eons. In Buddhist cosmology, existence in every realm, being the product of a karma with a finite potency, is necessarily impermanent. Beings take rebirth in accordance with their deeds, experience the good or bad results, and then, when the generative karma has spent its force, they pass away to take rebirth elsewhere, as determined by still another karma that has found the opportunity to ripen. Hence, the torments of hell, as well as the bliss of heaven, no matter how long they may last, are bound to pass. For this reason, the Buddha does not locate the final goal of his teaching anywhere within the conditioned world. He guides those whose spiritual faculties are still tender to aspire for a heavenly rebirth, and teaches them the lines of conduct that conduce to the fulfillment of their aspirations. Suttas 41 and 120. But for those whose faculties are mature, and who can grasp the unsatisfactory nature of everything conditioned, he urges determined effort to put an end to wandering in samsara, and to reach nibbana, which transcends all planes of being. The Buddha and his contemporaries. The middle country of India in which the Buddha lived and taught in the 5th century BC teemed with a luxuriant variety of religious and philosophical beliefs propagated by teachers equally varied in their ways of life. The main division was into the Brahmins and the non-Brahminic ascetics, the Samanas or strivers. The Brahmins were the hereditary priesthood of India, the custodians of the ancient orthodoxy. They accepted the authority of the Vedas, which they studied, chanted at countless rituals, sacrifices and ceremonies, and turned to as the source of their philosophical speculations. Thus, they are characterized in the suttas as traditionalists, who teach their doctrines on the basis of oral tradition. Sutta 100, section 7. The Pali Canon generally depicts them as living a comfortably settled life, as marrying and begetting progeny, and in some cases as enjoying royal patronage. The more learned among them gathered a company of students, all necessarily of Brahmin birth, to whom they taught the Vedic hymns. The Samanas, on the other hand, did not accept the authority of the Vedas, for which reason, from the perspective of the Brahmins, they stood in the ranks of heterodoxy.